Hello, America. Welcome to a live edition of Off the Top Rope here on the Off the Mic Sports Network, coming to you live here from my residency in Los Angeles, California, live across the world on YouTube, um, and coming to you basically after a Friday night SmackDown following SummerSlam, and here's what I'll say about this show in a nutshell. John Cena was there for a large chunk of the show, fully babyface John Cena. Cody Rhodes was on the show. John Cena and Cody Rhodes wrestled. They faced off against Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul in the main event. John Cena's got his next challenger in terms of his retirement tour in Clash in Paris. But one thing that was missing tonight, and I think it's going to piss a lot of people off in a lot of different directions, is where the fuck was Brock Lesnar? Anybody? Where the fuck was Brock Lesnar tonight? Motherfucker returned at SummerSlam in a very controversial way, divided some of the fan base, even though a lot of people are still paying attention, and we get a small explanation of, hey, Michael Cole talked to Nick Khan and Triple H, and, they said, hey, it's time for Brock Lesnar to come home. He's asked about it through the media. We're like, okay, Brock Lesnar lives in Canada. He's going to show up on SmackDown, and we think we're going to get this at Clash in Paris. Brock Lesnar was nowhere to be found on this show. He got a little bit of a reference and a call out from John Cena, but there was, hey, they had a little bit of reference, but no explanation as to why Brock Lesnar made that attack. I'm assuming he will come back on the road to Crown Jewel, which is going to be in Perth this year, and I think that's happening in October. So I don't anticipate this match happening at Survivor Series. I think, it's going to happen in Perth. But to go to Logan Paul, and this is the second time this year that they've gone to Logan Paul in a John Cena match, which I found really interesting. Listen, I think it'll be a fine match, but coming off of the way SummerSlam ended, John Cena fully babyface, passing the torch to Cody Rhodes. And then, I heard rumors leading into this show, PW Insider and the Engagement Farmers who put this out there saying, hey, John Cena and Cody Rhodes are going to wrestle against Logan Paul and Drew McIntyre. I was like, okay, that's interesting. But like I said, a big missing piece of this show is the fact that Brock Lesnar, we didn't get an explanation at all. Like, this is the same old shit that we saw when he came in and just attacked Cody Rhodes. No explanation whatsoever. Brock Lesnar's just a beast. He just does whatever he wants, and they've referenced that heavily. Yeah, it would also be nice if WWE, hey, if they wanted to cool a little bit of the dissension in the fan base, which isn't much, maybe you could kind of enlighten us of why Brock Lesnar came back so quickly after, all the 2 years of allegations that came out about him. And, there's just been this discourse throughout the entire week. Did they just it makes me wonder, did WWE just look around and basically and just be like, are we not doing anything? Slip facts and quotes. They had a big angle and a major PLE. Brock Lesnar is one of the most talked about people. Yeah, they put 13,000 butts in seats. But you want to know, they wanted to see John Cena, but it's like, hey, you got to follow up. Okay, first of all, don't tell me I got no business or I'll kick your ass out of my chat. Okay? You're the one calling me a raging anti-Semite, dude. Okay? Because I didn't like Goldberg. And the least they could have done is at least have some reference to what we're doing with Brock Lesnar. That's all that was talked about on television. That's all that was talked about in the media. And they did not follow it up at all. At all. And aside from the it's great that they got 13,000 seats filled. Cool. But outside of John Cena, what the fuck happened on this show that was even remotely interesting? This was another paint-by-number SmackDown. Nothing happened. And you're coming off of your second biggest show of the year. It It was not good. Thank you, Chief. This episode was not very good. Outside of the John Cena stuff, not a lot hit on this show. You internet fans who love Carmelo Hayes got on this show. We had two MFT matches on this show. We had the U.S. champion get pinned in the middle of the ring by a guy who's not even on. You might, like, listen, you've got the U.S. champion who won maybe the worst steel cage match I've ever seen in my life get pinned by a guy who's not even on SmackDown in Sami Zayn in his hometown, which cool. It was great to see Sami Zayn get that moment. Solo Sikoa just takes a pin? What? And no Jacob Fatu. No Jimmy Uso. No Jey Uso. I will say this, Chief, and you are right. One of the very positive things about this show is we are getting Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. I'm assuming at Clash in Paris. What sucks about this is Drew McIntyre is not winning the championship. So, and listen, I will say this. The John Cena stuff that happened on this show reminded us why he is one of the greatest of all time. John Cena is fucking incredible. And the way that they just totally, again, for the second week in a row, stuck a giant middle finger up at the middle of the screen and basically said, fuck you, Dwayne Johnson, for fucking up what could have been one of the great storylines of all time. John Cena and WWE Creative have gone completely out of their way to basically act like the last 5 months didn't happen, which to me is fucking hilarious. I mean, it is fucking hysterical that WWE is going out of their way, just out of their way to, make every single effort possible to make you forget that John Cena was a heel. And, okay. And bring your questions. Super chats are open. That's the best way to support the show. I'm going to kind of go off of you guys a little bit here. Because there was really nothing on this show substantial outside of, the John Cena elements of this. John Cena really was a lot of this show. Listen, I'm not a pro Palestine person. Sammy can do whatever the fuck he wants. I'm not getting into that. Listen, I'm not the biggest pro. I'm a proud Jewish man. I'm not gonna get into that. Like, listen, Sammy loves his heritage. I'm not gonna get mad about that. But Chief, the answer to the question is, guys, if you guys want to pester him, the guy just enjoys hearing the sound of his own voice typing out on a keyboard. That's what it is. So if you guys aren't familiar with, I have fun. I get annoyed with him. Sometimes he'll agree with him. Sometimes he won't. He changes his opinions all the time. It is what it is. That's what I enjoy about this channel is I allow you guys to, have a platform to kind of interact with me. And this is what makes it fun. In response to what WWE did with Brock Lesnar here tonight, I think they're putting a pause on this and they're going to wait until Perth. That's what's going to happen. They're going to do this Logan Paul thing. They're going to get, this was one of the matches that they probably wanted to do. We had heard this for a while that John Cena, Logan Paul was going to be the match. What I find interesting is during the heel run, and maybe this is also feeds into the whole narrative of, hey, maybe we're just going to forget about the whole John Cena heel run in itself. But now they're going to just have Logan and John in another match, this time be one-on-one. And, I don't doubt Logan Paul will deliver. I think John Cena will be fine. But it's just like I said, coming off of that match and coming off of that finish to SummerSlam, it left a really bitter, this was one of the unanswered questions that we wanted throughout the week is what the fuck is Brock Lesnar doing back in WWE? Why did he attack John Cena? And all that we really, that's the other thing. It's he should be Brock. And maybe this is what happens. Maybe Brock is the reason that Logan Paul beats John Cena in Paris. Maybe that's what happens. I don't think that's the greatest idea in the world, but that's certainly what this seems like it's setting it up for. I do like that we basically now have what it seems like now 3 matches on this show going into Paris. So seemingly, I would guess if I'm a betting man right now, but who knows? Cody Rhodes may not wrestle on this show. Because you know how Triple H likes to shrink down the amount of matches on a PLE that he does. But Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre is clearly on the bill. Logan Paul, John Cena is announced. Stephanie Vicaire is either facing Naomi. I think she will face Naomi, or Io Sky. I don't think Io is going to win the championship on Monday. And then from there, I have no idea where they're going to go. Maybe you have a World Heavyweight Championship fatal 4-way. It looks like Roman Reigns is going to be on the road to Clash in Paris. We thought he wasn't going to be there, especially after he got his shoes taken and, you know, got tsunamied a million times on Monday. So maybe that's something that happens on this show. But to me, what I found really interesting is that, you know, hey, they made this whole big deal about Brock Lesnar, the 75 million impressions, all this stuff that they brought him back for, and then they just don't follow up on it. And, you know, Chief, what you bring up is a fantastic point. WWE used to be really good at storytelling, and they still have some good stories, but they have become more reliant on big moments than actual long-term storytelling. The Rollins cash-in was built to, and that was a big moment. And how they follow up, we'll see how that goes. The Brock Lesnar thing just feels like they just created a moment, got the social media impressions that they wanted, which is going to net them a whole bunch of money on social because they can, you know, you can monetize off of that. And then they're just going to call it a day. Brock Lesnar's going to show up for a quick paycheck, probably one that's going to be more hefty in Perth, even though you have to travel halfway around the world to do it. And he's not going to go to Paris. And yet here we are with no payoff whatsoever. John Cena doesn't have many of these dates left. So we're going to... Dude, I've let Papa H cook for a while. And I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt for the whole John Cena thing. Because I think a lot of that hinged on what they created with, you know... A lot of that hinged on what they created with, you know, The Rock and Travis Scott. And clearly, Paul Heyman said this publicly. A lot of people have said this publicly, that they didn't, that wasn't ever going to work. And, you know, that people ended up falling out. There was stuff that happened behind the scenes that we may never know about. It's just, especially with a big moment like that, you're going in front of a big crowd. I understand that you can kind of coast on it because, hey, 13,000 people in Montreal, that's incredible for a regular middle of the road SmackDown. But at the same time, it's like, you've got to get your fan base excited about going to the next pay-per-view. And one of the biggest talking points coming out of SummerSlam was Brock Lesnar, and he was nowhere to be found tonight. John Cena did great. I think if there's one thing that the heel turn did, it reinforced how incredible John Cena is as a babyface. He may be the greatest babyface in WWE or professional wrestling history. The way this man can engage a crowd is unlike anything that I've ever seen in professional wrestling. And, you know, seeing what they did, you know, with the blackout, you know, just the text, and then go immediately to his color scheme. That guy, he might be the first guy I've ever seen get 3 pops in his entrance. Music hits, the color scheme gets, and then when he ran down to the ring. Like, so I do think it was cool that John Cena wrestled tonight. And we got to see some of his cool moves. But then him and Logan just brawled to the back. Logan hit a low blow to end the match, so we had a no contest. And then, you know, John and Logan brawled to the back. We don't even see what the fuck happened, which, you know, is fine because the angle that's set up, and this is one of the things that I actually liked about this show, is they made it about, okay, who's next for Cody? Because there was some question as to whether or not who they were going to go with Cody. He's not going to be there Monday. Brock's not going to be there Monday. I have zero confidence whatsoever that Brock Lesnar is going to be there Monday. None. If he were going to be on Raw, why wouldn't he be on the Raw in Brooklyn? Now he's going to go to Quebec City. Maybe because of that, I'll let this potentially play out. I'll say this about Drew. He's not winning. That's not the issue. Drew's actually had a semi-decent year. It's just booking has kind of failed him, in my opinion. Because, hey, they wanted to play out the whole Damian Priest thing. He did great with that. Now he's with Logan Paul. I would have liked for Logan to, if they were going to win the match, I would have liked for, Drew McIntyre to get the pin in that match, but he didn't. Drew also took a loss to Randy Orton via distraction. They may be going to this too soon, but it's very clear that they don't see Drew being, that lofty of, they've got some rehabilitation to do. I hope that, listen, I know that Gunther is rumored to be John Cena's last opponent. I hope to God it's Drew McIntyre. I really hope it's Drew McIntyre. It makes way more sense. But that being said, Drew's getting thrown into a program with Cody Rhodes. I would have kind of done this in reverse, and I would have honestly, gone to somebody else. But I think what this is setting the stage for is Cody Rhodes is going to be the WWE champion, I think, going into WrestleMania 42. I think there's a really strong possibility of that. I thought Drew McIntyre would be a very interesting opponent for him at WrestleMania. I don't think that's happening based on the fact that they're going to go to this to either Paris or Perth or a Saturday night's main event. They're going to go to do this somewhere else. CM Punk is potentially on the board. He may have stuff to deal with Rollins. And then Randy Orton's also on the board as well, because that's got a ton of story, and a lot of people thought that would be built to here. So I don't know, but them going to Drew right away, I did love the angle, and I loved the shot that they did with, him claymoring him through the bottom of the announce desk. That looked brutal. That was a very, satisfying thing. And I agree. They absolutely need to do a draft. They need to do a draft desperately, because I don't know what the fuck they were doing with the women, like, with Lyra. She's basically, there was no real follow-up to what happened in that match on, so following up off that whole finish at SummerSlam, she's not turning heel. She's just like, I need to get away from you, Bayley. Lyra would be a perfect candidate to just get drafted over to SmackDown, in my opinion, because if you're Triple H and WWE, my whole thing with this is like, you guys saw how the state of this women's division is, right? You guys saw how the state of this women's division is. Backstage, Tiffany Stratton gets another backstage promo. That's the women's champion, who's the longest reigning champion in all of WWE, over 200 plus days. And she gets confronted by Jade Cargill. That's it. And then, Kiana James and, Julia get into it with Jade. No Bianca Belair. There was rumors that Bianca Belair might be back. She wasn't. The SmackDown women's division needs a reset button in the slightest, and especially with two of your biggest talents in Charlotte and Alexa Bliss, which their segment kind of came across as forced, but I'm willing to let it go. They're trying to really play up this whole frenemies type deal, which is fine. This show wasn't it, man. This show wasn't it. This has been really the paint by numbers SmackDown formula. You had really your big angle, your big top storyline. At least it was John Cena. It wasn't like Bloodline MFT related. I don't know. I don't know if Tiffany's going to listen. I think Tiffany could potentially chase it and try to win it back in Minnesota. I don't think she's holding it for another year, because clearly what they want to do is bring in is they want to bring back Bianca Belair and put her at the top of the division. Now, whether they move Bianca to Raw and have her go after Naomi because of the history that they have there, that's something to explore, and that also opens up the possibility to Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair happening at a later date, which would be very interesting to me in the slightest. And then maybe you could move Io Sky to SmackDown, and you could move some of these other pieces to SmackDown to maybe have different challengers for Tiffany. I don't know. Joe Hendry. I love Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry and Cody Rhodes right now. Joe Hendry is a former TNA champion, and Joe Hendry lost in 5 minutes to Randy Orton. Alberto Del Rio. Can we stop with Alberto Del Rio, please? Can we stop with that shit? I'm over Alberto Del Rio. He wasn't that great when he was in WWE to begin with, and he's got baggage. Come on. Really? Really? I think Drew McIntyre is a fine starting point. If Kevin Owens were healthy, you could go back to that. And, maybe if Kevin Owens can get healthy before next WrestleMania, maybe we go back to that. That would be very interesting. Listen, they've got a limited pool of people that they could go to right now. And I think Drew, because he's a former champion and, because, he's been hunting Cody for a while. This has been planted for a while. I think this is a fine first place to go right off the bat, going into Paris, or if they want to hold this off until Perth. We don't know what's going to happen. John Cena's opening promo was fucking great. I really enjoyed okay, let me do this first. So in terms of Jade, I do think the loss is going to help her. I absolutely do. I hope they turn her heel. Because to me, Jade Cargill, if you guys watch anything in what she did in AEW, she was a great heel. I know she's not going to be able to do a lot of the cut the shit, Tony. But I think she would thrive more if she went to being a heel. Maybe she had baddies. I don't know how they're going to be able to do that on a family-oriented show. But I think that Jade losing is potential. I thought one of those two needed to go heel. So I think, Jade's got a possibility to potentially emerge as a potential heel challenger and chase Tiffany. Bianca Belair, maybe she goes after the women's championship, but they need to shuffle these rosters. They really do, because Lyra has nothing to do on Raw now because the Intercontinental Championship picture, and, Stephanie Vaquera's got the next one. I think Lyra should move to SmackDown, should get her away from Becky Lynch, maybe keep Bayley on Raw. You try to mix up some of these talents. I've heard rumors that Sol Ruca may get called up to the main roster. They really need to mix up the women's division more than anything. And then in terms of the men's division, it's going to be really interesting to see how they shuffle the rosters there, because Rollins, he could use potentially other challengers, but it seems like LA Knight's already become a Raw guy. I don't know what the fuck they're doing with Sami Zayn. Because that whole thing with Solo was bizarre tonight. Like, great moment, but bizarre booking in my eyes. Almost like the reverse of what Vince does with, booking his talent in their hometowns to lose. So it's just like, listen, I don't know, man. This was a weird night. This was a really weird night for SmackDown. So the John Cena promo to start the show was great. You saw how fucking great a babyface this guy is. And I think if there's one thing that this promo and, basically what happened at SummerSlam when he made his entrance, when the black, and the colors came back, there's one thing good that the heel turn did, it reinforced just how fucking great this guy is a babyface. And I don't know why we ever fucking turned him. I mean, we got 5 months of heel Cena, and then, hey, when the payoff happened, it was the most insignificant way possible. Listen, if you don't like Sami Zayn, that's fine. I actually think Sami Zayn's a good wrestler, and, he's the ultimate babyface, but, that's a good way to put it, Chief, man. This absolutely felt like something straight out of the Vince McMahon playbook. Like, really, John Cena dominated the show. You had a main event that ended in a DQ finish. And, not a lot of storytelling. Like, you had the MFTs bleed into 2 segments. That's straight out of the Vince McMahon playbook right there. Like, you have something that bleeds across 2 segments. You have a champion get pinned in a non-title match. Some elements of stories that came about, but, some of these matches, a lot of impromptu stuff and stuff that was kind of thrown together. And then, the main event itself only went 8 minutes, and the one storyline that we kind of wanted to see get paid off did not get paid off on this show. So I don't know about you guys. I feel kind of underwhelmed with the week that WWE did. Great. From a business sense, cool. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about stories, and I'm talking about what they put out on the screen. And yeah, very hot crowd in Montreal. John Cena, ultimate babyface, getting to see him wrestle on free television. That's fucking awesome. Got a DQ finish in the main event. The closing angle was fucking great with Drew McIntyre. Yeah, literally almost everything that happened with Cena, including the R-Truth thing where they basically just, basically giant middle finger at Dwayne. That was about the best thing that they did on the show. Everything else in the show was mid to terrible. The Charlotte and Alexa stuff I'm letting go, but that was kind of a little bit cringe. I was wondering what the hell happened with that. I did like, the Chelsea Green part, the match with her and Charlotte. Chelsea eating basically going face first into a cake and tapping out with cake on her hands. Chelsea Green just continues to entertain. She's fucking outstanding. I love Chelsea. But yeah, really nothing really escalated. I don't know why you want Vince back, man. Those were the dark days, buddy. Vince McMahon coming back to WWE. Everybody thinks that, the Brock Lesnar thing's going to turn people away. It really hasn't turned any people away. And yes, this is a good point. SummerSlam things cool off. But even going into SummerSlam, nothing was really like incredibly white hot. And then, you closed both nights with really monumental, kind of big think pieces and really big shocking moments, with the Rollins cash in, which should lead to something big. They didn't really do anything substantive out of that, even though they had a world championship match. And then, John Cena wrestles tonight. What came out of it? Cool. We got Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. That's awesome. But John Cena, the one thing that we wanted to follow up on, because you created a moment that you are trumpeting up and talking about everywhere, and yet the guy involved in that is nowhere to be found on any of WWE's 4.5 hours of content. 4.5 hours of content they had this week, because I'm not counting NXT, because NXT wasn't going to do anything with Brock Lesnar. Let's be real. 4.5 hours of content. We did not hear one peep from Brock Lesnar. All we got was hyping up the return and, playing a couple video packages, and then Michael Cole basically saying on Raw, I talked to Nick Khan and Triple H, and they explained in kayfabe why they brought Brock Lesnar back. That was the one thing that they really had to do tonight outside of create a compelling show. Crowd was great. The matches were, okay. They did, I guess, somewhat advance a little bit of story. But, your United States champion gets pinned. And that's something I don't like. Sami Zayn gets a cool moment in his hometown, whatever. And then really, like I said, beyond that, hey, Carmelo Hayes gets on television. The tag team division, I guess, Street Profits are facing off against DIY. We're going back to that. By the way, tag team division, another thing that's got to get worked out draft-wise. Yeah, this show wasn't good. This show was not good. I'm not really going to get into a substantive review here because listen, like I said, there's nothing. Yeah, I mean, that's Chief, you are on it tonight, buddy. You are on it tonight. Putting him in a room with Joe Test, putting him in a room with Wade Barrett, basically having him sit down there, long-winded question from Wade, and Brock maybe just walks out. At least have him on the show. That would have been fine. I also think it would have been productive if hey, quick little backstage segment, and maybe he says a couple things. I knew I should have known that they probably weren't going to do anything really substantive, but I think just the biggest thing is that Brock Lesnar was not there at all. I thought that they would absolutely have Brock Lesnar get involved in this main event. But now that Logan Paul, and when I saw this get reported by PW Insider, I was like, okay, Brock Lesnar's going to get involved in this match. But then in the opening segment, Logan Paul challenges John Cena to Paris, and I was like, okay, maybe I got my hopes up that Brock Lesnar was going to be there. This is textbook Vince McMahon shit right here. And I've said it on the channel. Triple H is starting to resemble more and more like his father-in-law. Because they're like, hey, we needed to rehab some of our image and some of our ticket sales and some of our strategies. They sold to TKO. They're making more money than they ever have. They're very profitable. Cool. And now basically they're in this point right now saying, we're making money. The ticket numbers and everything is not dropping. We're just going to coast. We're going to coast. Brock lives in Canada, dude. Brock lives in Canada. It was not a visa issue. Brock lives in fucking Canada. I think he lives in like Saskatchewan or something like that. Brock Lesnar lives in Canada. He does not live in Minneapolis. He lives on a farm in Canada. This was the perfect time as ever to have him show up. I hope I'm being told that, like, at least from my internet, I don't know if my internet's not doing well here, so I hope that I'm in a good spot for you guys and like it's not glitching out. But like I said, it's just, Carmelo Hayes, people are gonna, the negativity grifters are gonna probably be mad. Oh, Carmelo Hayes and Fraxium had a match on main event, and Carmelo Hayes deserves better. And he's doing something with Miz. Can we not like do that? Like, I like, listen, like, I'm pissed off at the way that this show turned out, but it's not because Carmelo Hayes didn't make this show. Okay, let's talk about what we can bring that up for a second here as well. Aleister Black, furthered his thing with Damian Priest. I like that they did that with a little backstage thing. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, hell, if you want to just, hype up and do a video package, if Brock Lesnar wasn't going to be there, let's stay with this for a second. If Brock Lesnar wasn't going to be there, why not have like a video package of some of the greatest hits of Brock Lesnar's career to remind us who Brock Lesnar is? And in the video package, you have like some sort of like, simplified explanation. Hey, John Cena, you thought you were going to go out on your own terms without facing me? I'm coming back to kick your ass before you retire because I've been the biggest thorn in your side. It's that simple. It's not that hard. It doesn't have to be that deep. Brock is bitter that John Cena, who came in after him, 17-time world champion, has had the amazing career that he has had and is retiring, and he thought, hey, you're going to just go out without having to go through me. How simple is that? And they absolutely got to do better than this in terms of storylines and pay-per-views if they're going to start charging $30 a month for PLEs. A lot of people will still pay for it because, hey, WWE premium live events generally, when they're motivated to, are actually really good content. My concern is I do not know where they're going with some of their key angles here. Because Rollins, we don't know what his direction is for Paris. It seems like Roman Reigns may be involved. I think the safe bet is LA Knight and CM Punk in a triple threat. And then I would have, maybe that doesn't even happen on the show. And then you maybe have Roman face Bronson Reed. Roman facing Bronson Reed actually makes a lot of sense. With two of his sets of Jordans getting jacked from him, that makes a ton of sense. But yeah, they got to do better, man. Because literally all they are hanging on is moments. And the payoffs and you guys know, for everybody who's been with me since the beginning, you are only as good with the moments that you throw out there. You're only as good as the payoff. Look, case in point, John Cena heel turn. Payoff sucked. They want you to forget about that because of how bad it was. Great moment. We may never forget that moment, but everything that happened after, shit. I've been going here for a little bit. I don't think it feels so much like the Death Riders, because I think it's easy to make that correlation. I do think having Heyman there and having a voice, I think definitely makes it feel different from the Death Riders. The Death Riders, just created chaos for their own, like, it wasn't even about power. Like, Rollins is holding the championship. That's the difference here. So I can totally see the correlation. Former Shield member hanging out with a bunch of other dudes. They're all just beating each other up. He drew more. Listen, it drew money because TKO wasn't going to stop grossing money. The heel turn was an abject failure creatively. They were going to get money no matter what. It's John Cena's final year. Like, dude, I don't know listen, I understand Hulk Hogan wasn't a great person. I don't know what some of you people have against Hulk Hogan. That 96 heel turn is going to stand the test of time. It changed the industry. The Monday Night Wars aren't what they are without, the NWO and, the Outsiders and, Hulk Hogan joining him as the third man. The John Cena heel turn was an abject failure. It was an absolute abject failure. You could say that you could make the financial argument, but I don't think WWE was, thinking about financial shit at all when they made that move. I think they wanted to create a shocking moment. They created a shocking moment and they followed it up with garbage. So yeah, they made money off of the initial impact, but how they followed it up was crap. So much so that they literally put the whole thing on R-Truth. They got rid of R-Truth, and we're literally back to square one with that. Listen, man, like if you guys got any questions in the chat, that's a good one, Chief. Unique stages. I don't think so. Another good question. If ESPN's got the deal, will they fire Def Rebel? I hope so. I hope they fire Def Rebel. Fuck Def Rebel, man. Like, seriously, that's some of the worst music ever. I don't know if you guys, listen. I don't think they're going to go to unique stages. Like, I don't know, personally, I hope they bring back the SmackDown Fist, man. That's one of the great stage designs of all time. But I don't have any optimism that they're going to go to custom stages, except for WrestleMania. They're not going to do anything special. Because even though they're making more money than ever, they're going to make it as dumb and as simplistic as they possibly can. So the answer to your question, Chief, is no. I do not think that they will go to unique stages at all. Super chats are open. Any questions for me? Any questions about the world of professional wrestling, AEW, WWE, TNA, Forbidden Door, whatever you guys want to talk about, anything that you guys have seen on the channel, the ESPN deal, Brock Lesnar, whatever. I'll kind of hold on here for about 5 or so minutes to just do a little Q&A with you guys. So chat's open. Like I said, everything's open for you guys. The best way to support the show is to, get in those super chats. It makes life a lot easier for all of us. And, like I said, it helps me, listen, I came in here wanting to do a SmackDown review, and listen, to be honest with you, like I said, none of this show really even mattered in the grand scheme of things. You had 4 matches on this show. The US champion loses. Listen, I don't know. I don't know what the fuck that was with Cody's entrance. Cuz did they cut off the initial pyro, but when he punched down, like the pyro went off? It was weird. That was odd, man. Did they just cut it off? Like, I don't know what happened there. That was really bizarre. That's a good question. Listen, if TNA gets a good television deal, if they let's use an example here. Let's say TNA gets on CW. And they're on CW on Thursday night. Because it's a Thursday night thing. Do I think TNA will beat AEW? Yes. I think TNA, if they get the right television partnership and they get a good distribution type deal, I absolutely think that they can do better than AEW, because they've got WWE really behind them. The visibility of that is going to help. I think, getting some of these TNA people on NXT on CW makes a lot of sense. A lot of people will, basically and generally talk to me saying, well, AEW is always going to be the second alternative to WWE. Here's my problem with saying that. WWE has always been stable with what they're doing, but NXT is now beating AEW. That's the developmental show with a lot lesser stars. Like, they've built their own stars and they've brought in some of the AEW people, but that's beating AEW on a regular basis. Like, AEW got a great number. I don't know if it was curiosity, after what happened, but an extra, an extra like 100,000 viewers they got this week. Cool. They still lost to NXT. And, all this high priced talent that, AEW's brought in, it's netted them nothing. Mercedes Moné, everybody thought she was a draw. She hasn't been a draw. Will Ospreay, cool wrestler. He's not a draw. I love Hangman. He's not a draw. It's just, I don't know, man. But yeah, I think if TNA gets the right partnership, I think they got a real chance to beat AEW. Yeah, MJF being in the main event was definitely part of it. Like, what I wonder is, why didn't that happen the week before? I think it was coming off of, I think a couple things can be true. You're absolutely right that MJF and Happy Gilmore, MJF being in that main event and it being an announced main event right away was great. They're coming off of a world championship match, which was great. And then, I think some of this is the curiosity, and some people were putting this out on social media. Some people might have been, maybe alienated or driven away by some of WWE's decision-making in the last couple of days. And they were like, hey, maybe let's try the new guy out and let's see what happens. Once they saw what happened on AEW, they're going to be like, what the fuck is this? Because AEW did not book a show for casual people. They booked a show for the sickos. And that's not how you build an audience. So a lot of things can be true. Yeah, R-Truth ain't driving anymore, man. You guys missed Rampage? Rampage was fucking awful, man. It's fucking awful. Yeah. They went from NBA arenas. They went from Wembley Stadium with their biggest show of the year to a baseball stadium, and hey, here we are. Looking at some of your questions here in the chat. Yeah, the main event scene for AEW is fucking terrible. I mean, WWE's main event scene is, fine. I think it's better suited on Raw because at least you have 3 potentially ready-made opponents for Seth Rollins. The Women's World Championship picture's a lot of the same, but at least you got Stephanie Vaquer potentially, and I love Naomi being in that spot. In that respect, 1 hour of quick wrestling, but nothing happened on that show. Nothing happened on Rampage after the the CM Punk debut. Nothing happened on Rampage of note. Nobody gave a shit on that show, and it's basically Collision is what Rampage used to be, except it's a 2-hour show on Saturday. That's really what it is. So, yeah, I mean, it's but this wasn't a good show. I don't know about you guys, because I know a lot of people in the chat don't like Sammy. Him being solo makes no fucking sense. And then there was no payoff whatsoever. No Jacob Fatu. There was no Jimmy Uso. We didn't see Jey Uso at all this week. Jey Uso was on the first match of SummerSlam, one of your most over people in WWE. And Jey Uso was not on the show at all. Like, what? Like, what? I don't get it, man. I don't get it. AEW absolutely should do a brand split. The problem is they don't have enough main event talent to, fill it out. Because basically, if you were going to create that, split, Kenny Omega needs to be back. You have Okada. That could be branded as the second world championship. You could have that break off. Like, this is what it should have been when CM Punk had Collision. I mean, listen, I'm not going to speculate on what's going on with Jay. He did have a pretty heavy year. If you guys watched Unreal, he was pretty worn out and pretty beaten up from the main event push that he had. So maybe that's it. I don't think a time limit draw. I don't think a time limit draw is really a good way to go. It's ultimately a cop out. I don't play Call of Duty. I'm sorry. I never was really into I was more into sports games when, I was back in my gaming days. More so now I'm more about sports and stuff. So yeah, I never was a Call of Duty guy. Yeah. Oh, Dave Meltzer is absolutely one of the biggest reasons why, AEW and their roster's kind of in the tank. By the way, did you guys see this? I'll kind of use this in closing. So, congratulations to Cody Rhodes and John Cena for getting a 5-star from Dave Meltzer. I think that's one of the only 5-star matches that they've had since the CM Punk John Cena match from Money in the Bank 2011. Here's what I was wondering. How in the fuck did neither one of the HBK Undertaker matches get 5 stars, especially the one at 25? And how the hell did AJ Styles and John Cena not get a 5-star rating? Cody Rhodes and John Cena was a fantastic match. I enjoyed the shit out of it. I enjoyed the shit out of that match. But I think it's totally ridiculous that some of the other great matches in WWE are being looked past. Dave Meltzer really is a hack. He really is a hack. Which is why a lot of the stuff that he's been reporting about Nick Khan, and I know some people can speculate about, like, Nick Khan apparently, if you're not accused of a crime, I was like, listen, unless Dave Meltzer talked to Nick Khan, I don't think there's any reason to believe that. But yeah, good for Cody and Cena. I think above anything, and like I said, going back into the point here, what the last, I'd say the last 7 or 8, 9 days or 10 days has done is reinforced how bad the follow-up was to the John Cena heel turn. They basically, in 10 days, basically just said, fuck you, Dwayne, fuck you, Travis Scott. People have gone out publicly and said, hey, stuff didn't work out with Travis. And here we are. And John Cena is just a babyface. I think if there's one positive that came out of that whole thing, is it reinforced just how great John Cena was. And the moment where, his colors scheme did come back and he ran to the ring and he talked to Stu, it was great. That was a great moment in itself. Everything else that happened in between that, the only thing that the Orton match was fine. The build to it, like you said, the John Cena character was really simplistic and really kind of stupid. It was a pretty generic heel character. Obviously the WrestleMania match will always have that, which we're going to have to, I'm going to have to, I almost want John Cena to have one more WrestleMania match because I can't believe that one at 41 when he won 17 is his last WrestleMania. We'll remember the SummerSlam match, 5-star match. They got redemption. Yes, here's what I think, and if you guys can get at me in the chat, to me, the best match he had when the heel was the CM Punk one, in my opinion. I thought the Punk one was the best one, even if there was so much interference on it. You could make the argument for the Randy Orton one, the tag, whatever. I do agree with Chief that it should have been no Dwayne, no Rock, no Travis Scott at Elimination Chamber. John Cena should have won the Chamber clean. They have a normal, traditional build to WrestleMania. John Cena versus Cody Rhodes, the babyface of now and the currency, and versus the babyface of then. John Cena cheats with some sort of nefarious means. Hell, he could low blow him in the match. Or, could put his foot on the rope to be desperate late into a 30+ minute match. And then Cody is like, okay, I understand that you were desperate. And then John Cena does all of the shenanigans that he did at Elimination Chamber and turn heel either during the match or post-match at WrestleMania. That would have been a profound image to do that at WrestleMania as opposed to a random Elimination Chamber show in Toronto. I did like the Randy Orton one too. The finish to it itself was kind of weird because R-Truth just walked in and basically, stopped a punt. But hey, listen, if I'm John Cena, ladies and gentlemen, and I've said this on this channel before, I don't know whose fault this is. If John Cena is the one making the decisions, if this is Triple H, if this is TKO, I don't know whose fault this. but the absolute malpractice that they've had with this heel run. It's one of the worst. Like, the heel turn was a disaster. This retirement run. If I'm John Cena, I'm fucking livid at this. He's such a great businessman that he won't say a word, but deep down, he probably is fucking infuriated. I think, listen, Vince Russo, okay, that's a tough question. Dave Meltzer has slipped into irrelevancy, but at least he's got a background of, like, being in the industry. Vince Russo, what the fuck has that guy done? Like, he booked for WCW, and he was a big reason why WCW went in the fucking toilet. So it's a good question. I have no idea. It's pluses and minuses. I really hope they don't do 2 WrestleManias. I think that'd be fucking terrible. That'd be dumb. That'd be stupid. The Saudis are fucking greedy fucks, and if there's somebody who's going to be willing to do something stupid, it would be TKO. So I hope to God that we don't get a Saudi Mania and a regular WrestleMania. That would be so incredibly short-sighted and stupid. So, all right. That's it. We didn't even really talk SmackDown. I kind of did my cliff notes of this because, like, a lot of the show didn't fucking matter. I actually listen, I like Coach too. I mean, he needs to get his reporting better. I've always been a Coach guy. But yeah. Get at me on social media, everybody. Thanks everybody for tuning in here. I appreciate it. I will I'll catch you on the flip flop. What do you okay, hold on. I'm not gonna dip out of here. Celeb facts. What are you talking about? What would be stupid? Oh, okay. You're talking about the 2 WrestleManias? Dude, you're basically bastardizing the biggest creation in WrestleMania history. Look what happened with the Greatest Royal Rumble. That was stupid. You had 50 nobodies, and you're just going to throw a bunch of money at it. It's like, listen, Saudi, the way that they portray their other shows, they treat it like a WrestleMania. You don't need to make it another WrestleMania. It's really dumb. So maybe I'll have to do that as another video. Anyway, like I said, appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you.